And what do you prefer to use as your weapon?
Why don't you search me and find out?
I'm in color. I'm in color because, well, two reasons. In real life, I'm in color, so I might as well admit that. I don't go around in my real life in black and white. And the other thing is, today, we're going to focus on neo-noir, the movies of the color era. And we're going to talk about a movie that came out in the 90s, set in the post-war era, set in a black neighborhood of Los Angeles, very realistically depicts that world. It has Denzel Washington, directed by Carl Franken. Have you guessed it yet? Okay, Devil in a Blue Dress. And then the one that came out in 1974, set in 1937, drawing from some little shenanigans that went on in Los Angeles between 1905 and 1908, and it's Chinatown. We're going to talk about femme fatales, and we are going to draw, not just we, me. I'm going to do this. So we're going to take a poem from Kevin Young's book, Black Mariah. Black Mariah meaning the police paddy wagon that carried prisoners. It was the rhetoric, 30s, 40s rhetoric for that paddy wagon, Black Mariah. And we're going to take a poem from, and Kevin Young, widely well known all across the country, right? And then John Allman, not as well known. I helped discover him in Los Angeles. Other people might have discovered him in the Southwest, the Northwest, Midwest, but I helped discover him in Los Angeles, East Coast poet John Allman, also known as Jack, who wrote a book called Lowe's Triborough. And what's interesting about both of these books is that they're entirely devoted to or inspired by film noir. Now, the femme fatale. Everybody uses that word as if we all agree what it means. For the sake of argument, I don't know what a femme fatale is.
Shut up and don't give me any arguments. You'll have nothing to worry about.
They're different in almost every movie.
Housewives can get awfully bored sometimes.
I've no right to ask you. I know I haven't, but I do ask you. Help me.
You won't need much of anybody's help. You're good.
Doesn't it bother you at all that you're married?
What I want to know is, does it bother you?
Don't waste your time, Sally. He's way out of your league.
Think so?
We like to think about them as if there's just this one, there's always this one thing, the woman, the very sexy woman who gets the man in trouble, and it's all her fault. I got into a big Facebook argument with a bunch of people saying that. It was like me against 10 people all saying that. I was like Bruce Lee against 10 people. And they were all saying the femme fatales they're all about men's fear of women. And I'm saying, which ones are you talking about? Sometimes it's partially their fault. Sometimes you take double indemnity, right? And you take Barbara Stanwyck's character, Phyllis Dietrichson. Sure, she kind of prompts Walter, played by Fred McMurray. But you know what? He's been going around with this idea in his head most of his adult life, just working out the idea for the perfect crime. So all he had to do is to ring the right doorbell, or maybe the wrong doorbell, and meet up with somebody who set a little fire under him. So can you blame it all on her? In these two films we're going to be looking at today, what these women have in common, especially at the beginning, is a sense of cool, of control, a suaveness, a detachment, and that control evokes a sense of profound mystery, but it's also somehow threatening. They seem to know what's going on here when no one else does. They seem to have secrets. And in both cases, with Jennifer Beals playing Daphne Monet in The Devil in a Blue Dress, and Faye Dunaway playing Evelyn Mulwray in Chinatown, right? As the movie starts to unfold, we find out that both of these women are concealing secrets. And they're concealing these secrets under duress. It is necessary for their survival. When we first see Evelyn Mulwray, she walks in, she steps into this room, cool, right, domineering, gorgeous, perfectly composed, regal. And the men are all making fools out of themselves, all laughing at a juvenile joke, acting like morons. And she just cuts through this with this icy, severe sexuality and this sense of dominance. And they realize how stupid they look. She's shamed them. You get the sense that Jennifer Beals' character, Daphne Monet, is in perfect control of her life and the characters who move through her life. And that's part of her sexual appeal, also part of her danger. As the movie unfolds, you find out these secrets that they have are painful, that they are in every respect connected, and here's where it gets interesting, to larger realms of corruption. They are in certain ways victims of a large, somewhat malevolent system.
Trust me, Mr. Rollins, I am the next mayor, and luckily for you, a friend of the Negro.
The actresses and what they did made me aware that there is a cost for wearing a mask. There is a cost for not being able to reveal who you really are. These two movies taught that to me on a deeper level, even when the characters seem in control. What do they have to pay for that? And then, of course, we find out neither of them are, and neither of them will be in control of anything. I mean nothing. One more thing, this is important. Before I get to the poems, the best part, the part I know you've all been waiting for, saying, come on, okay, get to the poems. I have to tell you something. I met Faye Dunaway. She came to my class. She came to two of my classes at the UCL Extension Writers Program, and I don't know how she'd heard about me. What an impression that made when she walked in on the first day of class, all dressed up because she'd just come from an awards ceremony. And when we went around the table and everybody introduced themselves, she just used her first name with a little beforehand. She just kind of said, my name is Faye, like that. And because we were all wondering, it looked like Faye Dunaway. And then we went, I think it's Faye Dunaway. And so she had trouble getting there because she had to have a limousine waiting for her outside. It was kind of expensive for the whole class. So for the second class, she said, my limousine left, and can anybody take me home? And everybody raised their hand. Everybody raised their hand, of course. And she said, and by the way, she was very respectful. I've heard that in some cases, in some eras of her life, she could be a prima donna. Not in this class, not with regards to poetry, and not with regards to teachers. She called me professor. I don't exactly have my PhD, but she called me professor. And so she says, I'd like to ride home with the professor, except that she didn't know about my car. I got to tell you about my car. I don't really want to tell anybody about my car, but now that I'm in this deep, I just have to go ahead. So I had this old Mercury Sable that bounced down the street. I mean, it just went bounce, 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 that like that. Eventually I got to where I was going. But also, the whole way that we were walking to my car, I was thinking, oh, God, I've got all this stuff. I've got all this. I was thinking of all the stuff I have piled in my front seat, on the front of the floor, everywhere, on my seat. And when I got there, I just started throwing the stuff out of the front seat into the back seat. And she was saying, no, don't do that. She said, do it nicely. She kept saying, do it nicely. And then she laughed, because I wasn't doing it, and I just have to get all this out, make a space for her. And she laughed, and she said, it's like Johnny Depp's car. So I've always remembered, I have a car like Johnny Depp's car. But then, on our way home, guess what we talked about? We talked about acting, right? What else? And I told her how much I admired her performance in Chinatown and some of the nuances of it and some of the little things she did. And I always remember that she said this, she said it was really a tricky, challenging role because I had to be playing three things at the same time. And you know what she means by that if you've seen the movie, that she's hiding behind layers and layers. It's those layers and layers of concealment, right? And at any scene, at certain scenes, she's presenting something when really she's feeling something else and pretending she doesn't know something when she knows something else. And all of these things have to be, that's why I love the art of acting. I love actors, right? So let's get to these poems. These poems, they're going to be about femme fatales. And both of these, what I like about them is they don't go for the cliche. Both of them, I would say they are postmodern. They are sophisticated in that they're looking at these characters that some people saw as flat characters, some people saw them as kind of archetypes, maybe stereotypes, but they're going into the psyche of the character. I should tell you that Kevin Young is published many, many books, is one of the best-known poets of the country. So well known, I don't even have to tell you he's well known. It's like saying Marlon Brando is well known. And he's the director of the Schomburg Center of the Research of Black Culture, associated with New York Public Library. He's the poetry editor of The New Yorker. This particular book it reads a little bit like a screenplay. There are characters that wind around each other. And this one here, we're now going inside the psyche of a woman who might be perceived as a femme fatale when she's on her heels in broad daylight or standing under the moonlight, right? He loves me slow as gin, then's out light switch quick. The moon's burned out bulb in a blackened sky. I lie in the dark and want his name to be mine, or to be alone. Wish I could walk out this overheated railroad flat and everyone on the street knew me home. And he'd wake in bed alone and wonder where I'd gone. Instead, his unsteady snore, calling the hogs, sawing, sleep for now, almost enough. Wanted to start down in my toes and tingle upward, then explode explode behind my eyes, closed, said, start down in my toes and explode behind my eyes, now closed. Like the pawn shop across the street, its sign blaring all night, what only daylight can buy. Up and down the block, you can hear the dogs talk. Never us. Till the pigeons pace the ledge outside my bedroom and strut like the painted girls down on Twilight Avenue. Moan the morning blue. For insomniacs everywhere. Moan the morning blue. As I would say to my students, those are some long vowel sounds. All right, John Allman goes by Jack. Brought out a lot of books from New Directions. I love this book, Lowe's Triborough. He uses characters from his childhood, real characters from his childhood, and he assigns to them film noir characters, at least at the beginning. And then those film noir masks begin to dissolve, and we see who they really are behind the mask. And we see the pathos. She lit a cigarette up there in the balcony, her lipstick imprinting the smoke before it even reached her lungs. Her hand itching for a reason, an automatic, something she could snap a clip into. Boys showing up one by one, sitting next to her, slipping a hand under her sweater while she rubbed the bulges in their pants and puffed smoke into the shaft of light from the projector, laughing when they sidled out of the aisle in their sticky underwear. There wasn't anyone didn't know her name in the halls of the high school, or in the front seat of cars where they dreamt of the blowjobs they'd never get and waited for her to walk home from her job in the dry goods store. Maybe it was her father's Labor Day pamphlets, the beating he took on Broadway next to Woolworths, the way she breathed so heavily through a deviated septum as if she always had a cold. Or blame her sister's weight, mother's long bloodhound face. Maybe it was the way a woman walked on screen, how she leaned against a wall, waiting for a light. Every guy in a dark suit coming up to her with his hand, cupping fire. Man, do I miss smoking. I haven't smoked in years. I started smoking for a guy way back in the 70s and gave it up for another guy in the 90s. I never really cared about the nicotine, never gave a damn about it. I was never really addicted. You know what I liked? It's just having a man light my cigarette. I miss that. Now, everybody I know has given up smoking, but everything's all gone to hell anyway. Well, time to say goodnight. Good night, ladies. Good night, gentlemen. And remember, look both ways, watch your back, and don't let anybody treat you like you're two for a dime.